He was just a janitor, riding the morning train, tired, unnoticed, carrying his son's crayon drawing in his pocket. But when a woman collapsed into labor right in front of him, everything changed. With no medical help, no time, and a train full of strangers frozen in shock, he stepped forward. What he didn't know was that the life he was about to save belonged to the CEO's wife, and this single act would rewrite his future. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The rain poured down in steady sheets, blurring the glass windows of the metro train as it rumbled through the early morning tunnels. Water streaked across the panes like quiet tears, and the overhead lights flickered weakly, casting pale shadows over the passengers seated in silence. Each person was locked in their own world, some lost in thought, others half asleep, and a few glued to their phones. Near the back of the car sat a man in his mid-30s. His name was Brent Doyle. His clothes were clean but faded, and his posture showed the weight of long nights and early mornings. He wore a dark blue hoodie, the hood pushed back to reveal short, neatly kept brown hair. In one hand, he held a simple lunchbox. Tucked inside his coat was a folded piece of paper, a crayon drawing from his 8-year-old son, Liam. It was a stick figure version of Brent, with a red cape and a bright sun in the corner. Written above it, in clumsy handwriting, were the words, "My dad is my hero." Brent smiled when he thought of it. It was the reason he kept going, cleaning university buildings through the night, helping Liam with homework in the morning, and falling asleep only when he knew his son was safe. But on this rainy day, something was about to happen that would test those very words. Just a few seats ahead, a woman suddenly gasped. She hunched forward, gripping her stomach. Her long coat was soaked from the rain, and her hands trembled as another sharp pain made her wince. Most people around her looked once and then looked away. It wasn't their problem. The train kept moving. Brent noticed. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. He watched as the woman struggled to steady her breathing. Her face had turned pale. She was clearly pregnant and clearly in trouble. She let out another cry, louder this time, her voice echoing through the train car. Every conversation stopped. No one mewed. No one knew what to do. Someone pulled out their phone and started recording. Brent didn't hesitate. He dropped his lunchbox, stood up, and walked straight toward her. The floor was slick from wet shoes and spilled coffee, but he moved quickly. Without asking, he knelt beside her and took off his coat, folding it to create a cushion between her and the floor. "You're going to be okay," he said softly. "Just breathe with me." The woman's eyes were wide with fear. She tried to speak, but her voice broke into shallow gasps. "My name's Brent," he said, "and I'm right here. We'll get through this together." He reached into his pocket and took out a clean handkerchief. It was something he always carried, one of those habits from years of being a single parent. He dabbed the sweat from her forehead and tried to keep her calm. She was in labor. The contractions came fast, each one stronger than the last. She squeezed his hand hard. Brent winced but didn't pull away. There was no conductor in that part of the train, no medical help, just Brent and a group of strangers too afraid to act. He started talking to her the way he used to talk to Liam during nightmares. Calm, gentle, firm. "You're not alone," he repeated. "You've got this." The train clattered around them, the sound like a drumbeat growing louder with every moment. But inside that train car, all the noise seemed to fade into the background. The woman moaned again. Her breathing quickened. Brent supported her back, trying to ease her pain. Memories of holding Liam as a baby, swaddling him in the dark, came rushing back. No, he wasn't a doctor. He had no training, but he knew what it meant to care. He knew what it meant to be needed in a moment when no one else stepped up. Minutes passed like hours. Brent never left her side. Finally, one long, intense cry filled the air, not from her, but from the newborn in her arms. A baby girl. Brent stared, stunned, as the tiny infant moved slightly in the woman's shaking hands. The sound of that first cry was enough to break the silence. Passengers gasped. One or two clapped softly. Someone finally called for emergency services. Brent gently helped wrap the baby in his jacket. The mother was crying, partly from pain, partly from relief. "You did it," he whispered. The woman looked at him through teary eyes. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She was too weak. When the train arrived at the next station, paramedics rushed on board. They moved quickly, lifting the woman onto a stretcher, the baby still wrapped in Brent's jacket. She turned to look at him one last time as they wheeled her out. Her lips moved, but her voice was gone. Brent stood there, unsure of what to do, unsure of what had just happened. No one asked for his name. No one offered him a ride. He simply picked up his lunchbox, now empty, and walked back to his seat. His hands were still shaking. His heart was still racing. But as he sat down, he reached into his pocket and unfolded the drawing from Liam. "My dad is my hero." He stared at it, quietly. He didn't know who that woman was. He didn't know where she came from. But in that moment, Brent knew one thing for sure. He had shown up. And sometimes, that's all that matters. The subway train kept moving through the tunnel, rattling like an old machine with a secret to keep. Water streaked down the windows, and the lights overhead flickered once again, casting brief flashes across the faces of the passengers. Brent Doyle sat still in his seat, his hands resting on his knees, though his mind was far from calm. He could still hear the baby's first cry echoing in his ears. The weight of what just happened pressed down on him like the storm outside. His jacket was gone, now wrapped around a newborn in the arms of a stranger. His knees ached from kneeling, and his palms were red from gripping the floor and steadying the mother through her labor. But he didn't think about that. Not once. Instead, his thoughts kept circling back to the woman's eyes, the fear in them, the trust she gave him, and the way she had looked at him just before she was wheeled off. She never said her name. He never gave his. And now, she was gone. The train reached the next station, but Brent didn't get off. He stayed seated as more passengers got on. A few recognized him from the earlier scene. They whispered. One person gave him a quiet nod. Most avoided eye contact. But none of that mattered. Back at work, Brent returned to cleaning the university's tiled halls and polished classrooms. He mopped the library steps. He cleaned windows while lectures went on inside. He packed his son Liam's lunch each night before his shift, folded his socks in pairs, and kept his routine exactly as it had always been. Except for one thing. He couldn't stop thinking about that moment on the train. He didn't know why it stuck with him. Maybe it was the way no one else had helped. Maybe it was the way the woman had trusted him without knowing a single thing about him. Or maybe it was because for the first time in a long time, he had been needed and had been enough. 3 days passed. On the third morning, Brent was buffing the marble floor of the university's main building. The machine whirred softly as he pushed it across the lobby. Outside, the storm clouds had cleared, replaced by bright sun and sharp shadows. He was finishing the last corner when he heard footsteps. Not soft ones, sharp, deliberate clicks of high heels moving quickly across the stone floor. He paused and looked up. A woman entered the lobby, flanked by 2 security guards. Her presence seemed to pull the air out of the room. She wore a black, tailored suit, and her hair was swept back into a neat bun. Her heels clicked once more before she stopped just a few feet away. Brent straightened up slowly. The woman looked directly at him. For a moment, he didn't recognize her. She looked so different from the person he had helped on the train. But then their eyes met, and he knew. "It's you," he said softly. She nodded. In one arm, she carried a small baby carrier. Inside it, wrapped in soft fabric, was the same baby girl. "You're the man who delivered my daughter," she said. Brent blinked. You work here?" She gave a small smile. "No, I own this place. My husband is the university chancellor. I'm Laurel Wynn." The name echoed in Brent's mind. He had seen it on building signs, on donation plaques. She was the face behind the scenes, the one who helped fund scholarships and research, the one whose office he had cleaned on Friday nights. He had helped bring her child into the world, without even knowing who she was. Laurel stepped forward slowly. "I went out that day because I needed air, space. I didn't tell anyone. My doctor had warned me not to travel alone. But I felt trapped in the tower. People only see me as someone's wife, someone's title. And when the labor started, I had no one, no phone, no name. But you were there." Brent said nothing. He didn't know what to say. Laurel looked down at her daughter. "You didn't hesitate," she continued. "You gave me comfort when no one else moved, and you saved her life." Brent shook his head. "I didn't do anything special." "Yes," she said gently. "You did." She turned to her security detail. "Give us a minute." The guards stepped back. Laurel looked back at Brent. "My husband wants to meet you. We'd like to speak in private, if that's all right." Brent nodded slowly. He followed her to the elevator, still unsure if this was real or just another strange turn in a week full of them. As the doors closed behind them, the hum of the lobby faded, replaced by a deep silence. And in that silence, Brent realized something. This wasn't over. Whatever had begun on that subway train between 2 stations was still unfolding. And the moment he thought had ended with a newborn's cry had only just begun. The elevator doors slid open with a soft ding, revealing a wide hallway lined with polished stone and high ceilings. Framed portraits of past leaders hung neatly along the walls. This was the executive wing of the university, a place Brent Doyle had walked through many times, but only at night, with a mop in hand and no one around. Now, he was here in the daylight, standing beside the woman whose baby he had helped bring into the world. Laurel Wynn led him down the hallway with quiet grace. Her steps were steady, the baby carrier resting in the crook of her arm. Brent followed silently, unsure what to expect. When they reached the large wooden door at the end, Laurel paused. "He's waiting for you," she said, offering a calm smile. "And before we go in, just know you've made a bigger impact than you think." Brent nodded, still unsure what those words meant. A door opened into a sunlit office. Wide windows overlooked the courtyard below, and sleek furniture gave the space a modern but warm feel. Standing by the window was a tall man in a dark gray suit. His expression was serious, but not cold. This was Eldon Wynn, the university chancellor. Brent had seen him once or twice from a distance. He was a man used to boardrooms, interviews, and decisions that affected thousands. Now, he was just a father looking at the man who had helped his wife in her most vulnerable moment. Eldon stepped forward and extended his hand. "Thank you," he said simply. Brent took it, his own hands still rough from cleaning chemicals and long hours. "I didn't do much," he replied softly. "I just did what I could." Eldon nodded. "And that's more than most would have done." They all sat down, the baby sleeping peacefully in her carrier between them. Laurel spoke first. "We talked about what happened every night since. I kept thinking about how scared I was on that train and how safe you made me feel." Brent shifted in his seat, still unsure how to respond. He didn't see himself as a hero. He had cleaned floors. He had comforted a stranger. To him, it was simply the right thing to do. Eldon leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "My wife and daughter are alive because you stepped in when no one else did. That's not something we can ever repay." "I don't want anything," Brent said quickly. "I wasn't expecting anything. I didn't even think I'd see her again." "And yet you showed up," Laurel said. "You acted without knowing who I was, without knowing the outcome." A moment passed between them. Then Eldon reached into a folder on the table and pulled out a stack of papers. "We understand you're raising your son on your own," he said. "We'd like to offer him a full scholarship, whenever he's ready. Full tuition, full support." Brent's eyes widened. "You want to help Liam?" "Yes," Laurel said. "This is for him, because you gave our daughter a future, and we want to help give yours one too." Brent sat back, stunned. His throat tightened, and for a moment he couldn't speak. "There's more," Eldon continued. "We've spoken with the facilities department. Starting next week, you'll take on a new role, facility supervisor. Better hours, better pay, more time with your son." Brent blinked. "You're serious?" "Very," Laurel said, smiling. "We're not just doing this to say thank you. We're doing it because we believe people like you deserve more." Brent lowered his head, overwhelmed. He had come to work that morning expecting nothing more than routine. He never imagined this. "I just wanted to do the right thing," he whispered. "And that's exactly why you're the kind of person this place needs," Eldon said. The conversation moved gently after that. They talked about Liam, his favorite dinosaur, his love for drawing, how he liked jelly sandwiches without the crust. They talked about the baby, whom Laurel had named Mila. They laughed quietly at how loud her cry had been on the train. Before Brent left, Laurel handed him something small. It was a photo, taken by a bystander on the train that day. It showed Brent, kneeling beside her, holding Mila in his arms just seconds after her birth. On the back, Laurel had written one sentence: "Sometimes strangers carry the greatest kindness." Brent tucked it carefully into his coat pocket, next to Liam's drawing. As he walked back through the executive hall, he didn't feel out of place anymore. He didn't feel invisible. He felt seen, heard, and valued. For the first time in years, he walked with his head held a little higher. This wasn't about reward. It wasn't about recognition. It was about a simple act on a subway train between two stations, and the truth that followed. That one moment of courage can change more than just one life. It can change everything. Weeks passed, but the memory stayed. Brent Doyle returned to his routines, though now they looked a little different. He still woke early, still packed lunch for Liam, and still walked to the university on most days. But the mop was gone. So was the quiet invisibility of his old job. He now wore a badge that read Facility Supervisor. He managed a small team. He had an office with a window. The hours were flexible enough to allow him to pick up Liam after school. More importantly, his nights were no longer spent in lonely hallways. They were spent at home, helping with homework, reading bedtime stories, and listening to Liam talk about his drawings. One afternoon, as Brent checked a maintenance report, a familiar name popped up on his calendar: Laurel Wynn. It had been almost a month since their meeting in the executive office. Since then, they had exchanged only a few polite messages, updates about Mila, thank you notes, nothing too formal. But today was different. The event was small, a university charity gathering. Brent wasn't used to such things, but Laurel had personally invited him to attend, not as a guest in the background, but as someone with a story to share. At first, he hesitated. He wasn't a speaker. He was a quiet man who liked his coffee warm and his days predictable. But Liam had encouraged him. "You helped someone, Dad. Maybe it'll help more people if they hear it." So he agreed. The hall was bright with decorations and soft music when Brent arrived. Tables were set, families gathered, university staff mingled beside donors and faculty. And near the stage stood Laurel, holding baby Mila in her arms. She smiled as Brent approached. "I'm glad you came." "Me too," he said. "Still not sure what I'm doing here, though." "Just speak from the heart," she replied. When the time came, Laurel introduced him. She didn't mention his title, not his new job, not even the scholarship. She simply told the room, "This is Brent." And when no one else stood up, he did. Brent took the stage slowly. His hands were steady, though his voice trembled at first. "I'm not used to crowds," he began, earning a few soft laughs. "I'm just a father. I was a janitor. Still am in a way, just with a new title." He paused, looking out at the faces in front of him. "One morning on a train, I saw someone in trouble. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know what to do, not really. But I knew I couldn't walk away." He told the story as simply as he had lived it. No embellishments, no spotlight, just the truth. He spoke about Liam, about being a single dad, about how small acts of courage often go unnoticed, but they still matter. When he finished, the room was quiet. Then came soft applause, not the loud kind meant for show, but the quiet, respectful kind that says, "This mattered." After the event, people approached him to shake his hand, to thank him, to share their own stories of moments that changed them. But the moment that mattered most came later. Laurel walked up beside him, Mila in her arms. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small frame. Inside was a photo. Mila as a newborn, wrapped in Brent's jacket, taken just after her birth on that rainy train. But in the corner of the frame was something else. A handwritten copy of Liam's original drawing. "My dad is my hero." Brent looked down at the picture, then at Laurel. "How did you get this?" "Liam gave me a copy," she said. Said it belonged next to Mila's first photo. Brent couldn't speak. He nodded once, holding the frame close to his chest. That night, back at home, he placed the photo on Liam's dresser. The boy looked at it and grinned. "Looks good there." Brent sat beside him on the bed. "You know, I didn't do it for a reward." "I know," Liam said. "You just did what heroes do." Brent smiled, brushing his son's hair back. "Sometimes," he said, "you don't need to wear a cape. You just need to be there, when it matters." From that day on, Brent's life stayed simple, but fuller. He still made his own coffee, still helped Liam pick out mismatched socks. But now, when people saw him around campus, they nodded with quiet respect. Not because of a title, but because of a story. A story that began between two train stations. A story about kindness, about a stranger who showed up, and about what kindness returns.